So here's the thing. How do you deal with the constant uncertainty and overwhelm of building a business? One of the main things I do as a coach is helping people navigate the inner game of entrepreneurship. The issue up until now is the way I typically help people is through private one on one coaching, which means that though I get to help that person, nobody else really gets to hear or see what real coaching with real people looks like. So, for today's episode, I'm starting a new series where I'm going to be doing public coaching to help real people with real problems develop real solutions to move forward with their business. So, in today's episode, I help Dan Bennett. He's been on the podcast before. Dan has built his company to multiple six figures, but lately he's really been struggling with the constant uncertainty and overwhelm of growing his business. And the cool thing you're going to get to see is at the beginning, Dan is really struggling with this uncertainty and constantly having to learn more and do more, constantly putting out fires, constantly not fully knowing what he's doing, and seeing all of that as a problem because it often feels like a problem. But by the end of the session, Dan walks away with the confidence and conviction he was looking for in order to move forward with his business. So if you're struggling with uncertainty in your own business, today's episode should give you a lot of insight. And if you want to work together either publicly or privately, I will put links to applications to both of those in the description below. Let's get started. When you signed up to do this call, you said, "We're growing so fast that I can't learn the new facets of my business quick enough to learn even newer facets turning up daily. It's pretty overwhelming." Give me an example.
So just a few days ago, we were coming up on the 30-day review for a new hire. It was not working out. As it got closer to the time, it became very clear we were going to have to let this person go before we even got to the review. And in retrospect, this is so clear, but while it was happening, it was just part of dealing with what was going on. My ops manager and I were going through the process, the technical process of letting someone go and restricting access to things and, blah, blah, all the organizational stuff. But I was going through the personal stuff at the exact same time. And after like the third or fourth time doing this, she addressed it. And when she addressed it, I realized I'd been doing it. And it was like these deep, painful sighs just in the middle of everything, kind of like that. And I realized what I was doing after every one of those was like, we just found this person. We did 198 or 189, whatever it was, applications, and 40 that actually came through and blah, blah, blah. And I've spoke that list to you before, so I know you're aware. And found what seemed to be this unicorn on paper and in interviews, and everything just lined up. And then after like 2 weeks, it's like, well, things are always bumpy when you're first getting trained and stuff. And then after 4 weeks, I'm like, this is not working. And the losing of the help and even the upcoming work of finding new help is okay, but I was feeling the loss of all that work. And it was like, I've not had these problems before. So my reaction to them is very raw because I don't have a calculated response system or mechanism in place to utilize. And she could tell. She's like, it'll be all right. We've been through this before, all the things. I'm like, thanks, because I'm struggling over here. So like that is something that is really acute, but the feeling overall is like in the cohort, it got brought up a couple times, like video games. I'll use that analogy because I'm not a huge gamer, but when I do game, I generally play a game through to its conclusion. Somewhere along the way in my life, games like that weren't that fun anymore. And it could be just a shift in my life, it could be age, who knows? But like somewhere along the way, I'm like, oh, I come up against something, I try 5, 6, 7 times, and I'm like, I'm bored. I'm either going to have to go watch a walkthrough or like quit playing this game because this is not fun anymore. And I was like, man, it used to be, it didn't matter what was going on. The game's fun. You're just trying and doing and playing and running and seeing and all the things. And I don't want that to happen in my business. I don't want that like adventure of growth and all those things to turn into like, I don't want a new level. But I also look at the level I'm on and I'm like, well, the things I want to accomplish before I'm dead aren't on this level. So I hope that kind of paints a little bit of a picture of this feeling of if I take this attention and energy away from what's currently happening in my business to learn new things and to try to get good enough to feel okay to make decisions, A, it's frustrating, and B, am I setting myself up for some kind of failure in the sense of pulling attention away from where it should be to try and learn new things, or how much time should I be spending on learning new things. And I think a big one for me is I've wondered the whole time, like, how do you identify what experiences and expertise and tools you already have that can be applicable to something new that you've never done before, in a strategic way? Because I feel like I'm just grabbing at everything I know and hoping some of it works. Like, I've been in similar situations, I guess, to this problem. So let me grab the tools I have. So it's more of kind of a response than it is a preparation or a strategy.
So you reference a cohort, the Alchemy of Fear cohort, where we talk about navigating or renegotiating your relationship with fear and self-doubt and things. How does this current emotional state you're in relate to these fears?
It's again, it's almost like a frustrating acceptance. So before we even started the cohort, actually, I think it was in my intro video in the community, I had shared, yeah, I've always looked at fear as like this guy you got to just invite in, play a hand of poker, see how things shake out. It's not something to be killed or put in a cage or overcame or whatever. And then sure shit, that's what we end up learning. And I'm like, oh, that is how I've always looked at fear, but like metaphorically, not as my actual relationship to it. It's always been kind of a reminder to me of like, don't run away from this, face it, but not knowing exactly always how to face it. So getting the tools through the cohort of facing it, I appreciated that. And I've been utilizing those things very specifically into fear is not the enemy. Fear is actually a guide. Come hang out, come follow me, those sorts of things. And it's another level. And I've got many of these stories throughout my, especially entrepreneurial career. It's another level of like, it's hard to grow a business. It hurts to grow a business, and we do it on purpose. And so it's like this next level of like, oh, well, I guess fear is not actually stopping me. It's a guide, and we got to keep going. And it's not that I'm like looking for a way out, but man, every reminder I get that there is no way out is a little bit of a painful one. So I thought a lot about the cohort before we spoke today because it lingers.
So I have, as you know, and everybody who's taken, the Alchemy of Fear cohort or people who have joined the Create Alchemy Lab, like my online community, you know that I'm a huge fan of the Stoic concept of memento mori, which means remember death, remember you will die. And I was a fan of that for a long, like ever since I first read it, I loved that concept. Like, okay, you're going to die, so you need to use it as a filter to help you determine what matters and what doesn't matter. Because so many of the things you think matter fucking don't relative to your mortality, right? Like, oh, well, what if people judge me? Fuck them, you're going to die one day, right? Or, okay, well, how do I prioritize what actually matters so that I can spend my finite time, my life units on the things that actually matter rather than chasing shit that doesn't, right? That's in intellectually, that was a guide for me for many, many years. But I didn't fully connect with it until I almost died. Right. And it was this weird disconnect of I thought I understood this concept. I thought I had appropriately integrated it into my life. But then when I actually faced real death and I was hospitalized, and it was a thing of like, I may not make it to tomorrow because I had this super bad infection. Basically, I was bordering on sepsis. Not that they told me that, but they were just like, yeah, you have this infection. If it gets into your bloodstream or your bones, you could fucking die. And also, you're not responding to antibiotics. So we're just going to remove the antibiotics, and you can't have surgery until like way later tomorrow because it's COVID and the beds are full and everybody's backed up. So hope you make it, buddy. And I've written about it, I've talked about it before, but that was when I was like, oh, fuck. I didn't actually understand this to the degree I thought I did. For you, it's like, oh, I understand fear is a guide. I understand I need to lean into this. I understand entrepreneurship is painful. There's a lot of uncertainty, and, entrepreneurship is personal development in disguise because the stakes are so high. It can't be an intellectual exercise. It is very real shit. And you can understand all that. But then there's a moment where you're like, I am in the shit right now. This is what I have been preparing for. This is what it actually means to deeply existentially feel and deal with this fear, this self-doubt, this uncertainty, this fuck, everything feels so hard. And I feel like I'm trying to like drink from a fire hose as I'm like in the moment, and mixing all the metaphors, right? Like I'm drinking from the fire hose, I'm building the plane to the air, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's just like, fuck me, there's no real answer that is clear cut. Everything is up to me. And it's like, where is the line between learning enough and then now I take action versus I don't know enough yet. I need to pause to learn more versus, okay, well, I can't pause. How do I learn and do at the same time? And it's like,
Yeah.
you think you know this, you think you intellectually get it, but it's that emotional component of actually feeling that and being in the shit in the moment. That's when everything shifts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's draining. And the more I feel anyway, the more self-aware and the closer to self-actualization you are, the more acute everything is. And I have this relationship with this thought, and have had for a long time. I used to say in the early days of like, grind and work hard and all that. Entrepreneurship is this like, I can't not. It's it's internal. It's not a choice. I don't wake up every day and force this existence for myself, because if I had a choice in it, I would just have a job and I'd be somewhere along the way now where, you know, it'd be relatively stable and I'd be in some position that I could, probably coast through until I retire and all that kind of stuff. So like the fact that it's hard and I'm driven to do it by something outside of my own choices every day to do it is it kind of compounds that effect a bit, that you're talking about. Um, it's something that just popped in my head that you might have solved for me after all these years. I've got this feeling of, when you like have a song on the tip of your tongue, you're trying to find it. And nowadays with Google and stuff, you're like, I'm not giving up on this. And you're humming into your phone, like, do you know this tune? Um, I have for a long time been trying to figure out why this certain thing bugs me so much. And the very, very short version of it is if I'm watching a film, uh, maybe TV and stuff like that, but definitely a film where you're sitting down for the one long story and then you're done, and it has anything to do with like predetermined things or fate or it was always going to be this way or my favorite gods of all kinds, but they still know what's going to happen. I get irritated when problems happen in the film and I'm like, why are you making these choices if you know everything's already predetermined? And like I'll find myself like picking at, the life of these fictional characters, kind of like I do myself sometimes of I was born to do this. I don't have a choice. I'm not saying I believe in fate, but like the direction I'm going even if I try to not. So like there's a little bit of an irritant there that just now it's coming to me that I feel a lot in films and stuff where there's fate or predetermination or like something like that. I feel similar in life. And what you notice about a lot of those characters is they don't rest. Like it's by design in film a lot of times that you want to keep the viewer entertained, but like you don't find a lot of rest. It's what's next, piff, shivit, piff, shift, pivot, move. And it's like, when do you even when they build a little fire by a tree and lay down, they're still on guard and they pop up 5 times a night because I think they heard something in the sticks and woods. And it's like, man, not that I want to be an old man that sits around and does nothing because that would drive me crazy too. You do get a feeling sometimes of like, can we get a stretch of smooth pavement? Just that, like long enough that it's recognizable, like, oh man, things have been like whatever, fill in the blank is great for you. for 3 months straight. This is crazy.
So I like this this thread. So yes, obviously with fiction and storytelling, there's a generally, depending on genre, there's a constant escalation. But another way, and that can help with retention and engagement, also shit. But in a real life situation, that constant escalation we can also look at as growth, right? Growth is painful. Growth is incredibly uncomfortable in any facet, right? Like if you grow spiritually, right, you have the dark night of the soul shit. You have to, maybe you go on a pilgrimage or whatever. You sit with your thoughts and you're just like, fuck me. Like there's all this, unresolved shit that I never really sat with, or there are all these thoughts or insecurities or weird beliefs I have, or weird internal scripts I have that I never really sat with. So I've always kind of run from them or distracted myself from them. And, it's that whole, quote of like, no matter where you go, there you are. It's like, you can't outrun yourself, right? There's that. But even something as concrete as going to the gym and lifting weights and like, quote unquote, growing your muscles, it's also painful. It's also uncomfortable. Like growth, I don't think can be comfortable. True growth. That growth, that escalation, that leveling up, that evolution is painful. And if you look in your life, the people who don't grow avoid discomfort. The people who do grow, the people whose stories inspire you, are the ones who they didn't necessarily chase pain, but they chased growth and were willing to pay the price of pain. And I think that's a real distinguisher for people who truly grow, who truly evolve, is they don't shy away from that. They realize this is the price I pay, right? It's like uh what one of the guys I rep all the fucking time, and he's half my age, Jay Yang. Literally today, right before we got on this call, Jay posted something on LinkedIn about this is what you signed up for. And like it was this big post about, basically don't bitch about your problems. Don't bitch about how hard it is, because this is what you signed up for. Like you specifically signed up to be an entrepreneur. You signed up to impact people's lives all over the world. You signed up to constantly push yourself. And, not even from the perspective of like, don't ever complain so much as own your shit. Own the fact that this is what you signed up for. And, I'm a huge fan of journaling and reflecting and on how, like, where you're at right now and where you used to be. And one of the most common things that I, in my own journaling practice, I reflect on is like, whatever the fuck I'm going through, it's like, this is what you signed up for. Learning how to navigate this particular moment of discomfort, or when you feel overwhelmed, or it feels like everything's on a razor's edge right now. This is what you signed up for. This tension, this moment comes with the path you have chosen to be on. And this is the thing that is the reason most people don't pursue this path, because most people are unwilling to pay this price. They're unwilling to deal with this level of discomfort. And there's a certain, I don't want to say serenity, but there's a certain acceptance of like, it's okay that I feel like this right now, because this is what I signed up for. This is part of my path. What are your thoughts on that?
Sucks. In a bow. One of the stories I believe I've shared with you when I was on your podcast was like being told by all these people who didn't know what to say to me as I was going through what many people went through in the pandemic of losing like everything, and so did my partner. So we're really trying to figure out what's going on. I almost lost my rental house at the time. There was just a lot of pressure and a lot of things we had no control over very quickly. Boom, you can't do anything about this, even if you had money. Good luck, So there's a little bit of like, woe is me, a pity party. And then there was, all these people that I was reaching out to as I was kind of coming out the other side of that. They were like, it's a good thing you're so resilient, or I've always known you as a resilient person. You're going to pull through this. So like, man, Dan, you've been through worse. Like you got this, all that stuff. The first 11 times until the 12th time, which was my buddy Rob Bogan that I talk about all the time. I got on the phone with him. Like, can I complain to you about something and it might offend you, but don't let it offend you because we're going somewhere with this. He was the 12th one that told me that. And I was so angry when I heard it. And I know him so well as a good friend that I was like, can I share with you how angry this makes me? But you didn't do anything wrong. I just want to share. It was, I said a very specific thing on the fly, and now it's part of that story every time I tell it. And it was, when does resiliency become stupidity? And maybe you should stay down instead of getting punched in the face again, because there's got to be a time. There's got to be a time where you feign the TKO, maybe, or you are on your hands and knees bleeding from the mouth and you wipe and see it, and you take a couple 5, 6, 7, 8 extra breaths to collect your thoughts, make a plan before you get up and re-engage. And then as time transpired, we move forward. A lot of great things have happened since then. I remember looking back and saying, everyone was right. And thank God they had the bravery to tell me, hey, you're resilient. I've seen it before in your life. You can do this. You can stand back up. You're going to find a way. Because I feel like them saying that was equivalent to people who are around people who cry and they don't know what to do with themselves and they just want the person to stop crying. Like, the thing I hate the most in life is when I hear someone tell someone else, don't cry or stop crying. I'm just like, you shut up and let them cry. Like, I think the hardest thing to do oftentimes in those situations is be. And a lot of times what people need is someone to just be right there and just sit, and you don't have to solve my problem. And the feeling of not being alone while I'm crying is enough. Thank you. Or I need some space to cry alone, and you're perceptive to that and you leave. All those things, that's hard to do because I don't want to see anyone cry either. But my instincts nowadays aren't fix their problem. It's be. And I feel like this time in business and life is kind of like that, where it's like, when I pull upon what I've known before, it is, you've been here before. This is okay. We do this on purpose. This is part of the deal. But I still find sometimes I long for a little bit of reprieve, and you can't like ask for something and then someone hands it to you and you bat it away. It's like, no, we asked for this. And when you ask for it for this long, like, it's not a question anymore. Do I really want this or not? No, I've been after this for decades. So like, you just have to kind of accept, what's happening. But there's just those times it just gets super irritating. Feeling bad about something I don't feel like I should feel bad about is a weird
That's
feeling.
it. That's it. So champagne problems are still problems. And this is one of the biggest things that people, when they achieve a certain modicum of success, really struggle with, because it's basically, I have no right to complain, or I have no right to feel like I'm struggling right now because I have succeeded, or I am succeeding, or I am doing so much. Therefore, it's a problem with me that I should keep to myself. I should suffer in silence because this is a champagne problem. No one will have empathy for me. I don't deserve to complain about this. I don't deserve to whine or whatever, right? And dude, champagne problems are still fucking problems, right? I hate the term champagne problems because it inherently minimizes the gravity of what you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why so many people at a certain point can feel so isolated and lonely or alone. Is just like, I have no, who am I to complain? I have no right to complain. It's like, that's such a limiting belief that keeps you from connecting with people, that keeps you from exploring the deep, like emotional aspects of what you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't, I mean, very truthfully, I wouldn't trade it. I won't fully go on a tangent here, but we've revamped our newsletter, and one of the early editions that I'm pre-writing, so we got a little bit in the can for the launch, is on Maslow's. And I've always utilized it as this visual and video and how to relate to other people. And in brushing up and studying and all the stuff I've done to make this, broadcast a really good one, I came across this little self-made documentary, which is really just a guy sitting in a chair in his studio making a YouTube video, but a lot of like references to Maslow's studies and published papers and all these different things. And I found somewhere in there that there's like this breaking point as you kind of ascend the pyramid, if you will, where the things that you're driven to solve and need, food, water, house, those things, um, at some point when those are fulfilled, we don't all have a mechanism in us to continue to push and grow. And then, so that's the first like fracture. And then what's left, and I'm oversimplifying this big time, but like what's left is two camps. And that is, I'm choosing to try to find esteem and maybe try to find self actualization. And then I'm burdened with the fact that I can't not. And I sometimes feel like I look at people who are choosing to be intellectual and self aware and learn as a little bit of jealousy because I'm traveling the same road. Like there's someone at my back with a shotgun saying, keep it moving, but there is no shotgun, man. There's just me and my moth to flameness that exists, and sometimes that is like, again, frustrating. Like I don't feel bad about many of these things. I feel irritated by them. And that bums me out because I'm in a constant state of irritability and it feels like it never gets to kind of soothe and chill. Yeah.
So I'll come back to Maslow because I have thoughts. But so like with me, if I talk to you about doing jujitsu, you might intellectually understand it. You may understand like, oh, it's hard. You're always dealing with injuries or like minor aches and pains. It takes a long time to get a black belt. It's a very hard, physically and intellectually demanding martial art. But it's different than if I'm wearing a jujitsu shirt and I see another person at the grocery store with a jujitsu shirt. It's like, oh, I immediately get it. And I know that you get it. And there's so much unspokenness there, right? Or like, I'm in a couple other organizations and things. And if I see somebody who signals that they're in those organizations, like, I understand a lot of implicit things that only if you've done this do you fully get. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship, right? It's like when you meet somebody else who's an entrepreneur, you're like, I get you. And
Yeah.
I know that you get me in a way that nobody else, unless you have actually like not just read all the fucking business books,
Yeah.
not like just put up a little fucking whatever. Like if you've actually been in it for years and you've hit these painful points that are like, whether it's a champagne problem or whether it's just like the deeply emotional and psychological aspects, the inner game of entrepreneurship, or like, fuck, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to make payroll? How am I going to like whatever, right? Or like, oh, I put 3 months into this launch and it didn't go well for reasons outside of my actual control because of macroeconomic factors, right? Or something like that, right? Or like when you're early on, you're like, I'm not getting enough signal to know what is working and what isn't because I have so few people I'm reaching, right? All of those things. When you meet another entrepreneur, you're like, oh, they get it. And there's a real camaraderie in that because there's so much that is unspoken or even sometimes unspeakable when it comes to
Mm.
entrepreneurship. And that's right where you're at right now is a huge part of that almost unspeakable, ineffable aspect of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. 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 And I relate to that. It's almost like, oh, here I can speak my mother tongue. You
Exactly.
won't be like, what do you do for a living? Yeah. No, I feel that for sure. And it kind of leads into, you know, some of these similar thoughts of, I think I might have mentioned to you, I went to a business conference a few months back and the very short version is I didn't belong there anymore. And last time I was at it, I did. And I was like, whoa, I have outgrown this way of thinking, this place, this level. And up front, there was a little bit of like, oh, I can feel kind of bad because like I'm not struggling and things are great and blah, blah, blah. And everyone around here is like, entrepreneurship will kick you in the teeth and you got to get back up. And I'm like, that's absolutely true. But also, it's not supposed to kick you in the teeth forever. It will pose problems to you, but they shouldn't all be ones where you're bleeding all the time. And then I was like, on lunch one day, everyone around me is like struggling, and I'm not judging them. I was there, right? And I'm like, yeah, man. And I'm trying to give any insight I can. And some of the insight was decent because I had been there. So that felt kind of good. But there was a realization as I went to my car, as everyone went to their cars and went home for the night, of like, well, now how do I identify these people I can talk to? Fucking get this, because I don't know. There's always been a part of me, and there always will, of reach back and grab someone's hand too, for sure. But like, I also still need to keep reaching forward and grab someone's hand. So like, how do I identify those people? And that's been kind of like on my radar. Not to figure out the problem, but to scan at least. And if something pops up, experiment or poke at it or ask questions or whatever. Hopefully I'm growing and making better decisions just out of being willing to say in front of the world, I have no idea what I'm doing. I hope that clears the space to then learn what to do next, or at least a rough direction to go.
So here's the thing. Related to this and go back to Maslow. There are a lot of different variations of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and updates and all this other shit. But the very simple version that most people are familiar with is like the regular, like 5-tiered one, right? And the top tier is self-actualization, and then the tier right below that is the esteem tier. And the esteem tier generally is, I make good money, I have fancy titles, people think I'm important, I have like the quote unquote American dream kind of white picket fence life shit. And the original, the most common version, is that he said less than 1% of people are ever able to go from the esteem tier to the self-actualization tier. So 99% of people never self-actualize according to that model, right? I personally, I don't think that it is that many people don't have the desire or the capacity necessarily. I deeply believe that oftentimes it comes down to fear to some degree. Whether it is, we in the cohort, we talk a lot about vulnerability. We talk a lot about feeling exposed or learning to trust yourself, learning to give yourself permission to do the thing, or just learning to be in the shit and like sit with that and be, like you said before, right? That to me is much more the cause of that chasm than, oh, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what self-actualization looks like to me. Like most people, if you get them like, a little buzzed, or they're sitting around a campfire for a long time, or like one of those other just like deeply contemplative, like mental states, they typically actually know what they deeply want to do. And then they're like, but here are all the reasons I can't, or I am attempting it and it feels so hard. And I feel that because it feels hard, or because imposter syndrome is kicking in, I feel that is a sign I need to back off. Because shouldn't it feel easy? Shouldn't it feel effortless? Because that's what all the fucking gurus tell me. Oh, do the thing that feels effortless to you, that feels, like work to everybody. All that stupid ass bullshit that leads people astray. Like the most aligned, quote unquote, natural thing for you, the most intrinsically fulfilling thing for you, will still feel effortful as fuck at times. Period. It will still feel hard. It will still feel overwhelming. They're not mutually exclusive. So here's my thing for you, man. We opened up, you talked about this example, with you went through this whole hiring process, and then you ended up having to fire them because it wasn't a fit. What is the thing you're actually struggling with? Because it's not that. That's a symptom at most.
Yeah. Like going into the cohort, I knew I wasn't familiar with your 4 horsemen, but I already had kind of named my fear. And then when I saw the horseman, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what my brain was kind of trying to say, which was the uncertainty horseman. And like, like everything I teach in my business is a spectrum, and everyone, I swear to God, it's not fair to say all and never and always, but like I swear everyone just sees the two ends of the spectrum and thinks that it's an A B choice and you got to be one of them. And I'm like, no one's on the ends. It's so rare, you know. Um, we're all in the middle somewhere. And so like I feel the the A-B-ness of everything. I know everything I come up against has another side to the coin. Like I don't ever take anything at face value. And I've been that way pretty much my whole adult life. So when I come up against something like the hiring thing, or, you know, we had some uh, uncertainty with the client. We don't know if they're moving forward and stuff. And my brain goes straight to like, all right, if they're gone, we got to do this. I got to move hours over to this Saturday. I got to make sure everything's okay. I can't just let this like bottom fall out, blah, blah, blah. Also, we have to, you know, treat them well, see if the problem can be solved. Do we want to move forward and present all opportunities and all that kind of stuff too? So there's like two sides to everything that's going on. And I feel like that simultaneousness is where that uncertainty comes from. Not that everything's an A/B choice, I got to make one, but it's like nothing is crystal clear. Like when people use that term crystal clear for any reason around me, you know, whatever, TV, a show, someone in a conversation, it kind of like hits a nerve because I'm like, nothing's fucking crystal clear. Like, so there's that feeling, right, of uncertainty that's caused by this. Can there ever be certainty? You know what I mean? And I remember I was standing at the top of Machu Picchu and I got away from all the people. It was a pretty light tourist day anyway, so it's kind of great. But I got away from all the people, and there's these two different things you could climb. There's the paid climb, but then there's two free ones. And I went on the one that didn't seem as popular because it didn't go as high. And I ended up on this landing that was about the size of a house. And you look up the front and you see the terraces and some of the people and the, you know, ruins and all the incredible stuff. But then you could turn around, look out the back and see down a mountain to a river. And it was just nature. And I walked to the back and looked down, and I kind of just barely audibly whispered, awesome. But I didn't make a choice to say the word awesome because I thought what was in front of me was awesome. I said it very purely. And as I heard myself say it, it was like I was someone else. I'm like, whoa, I might have just used that word in its actual meaning for the first time in my life. And that felt really powerful to me. I was like, whoa, that I'm so insignificant, especially in this moment, in this place, and all that kind of stuff. And in that moment, I felt like I understood something. And then 10 minutes later, we're doing something else. We're moving. I got bit by a bunch of sand fleas, like all kinds of shit went down. So it's like I had a moment and then it passed and problems reemerged or whatever. So I feel like when something like the hiring thing comes up, it's not the hiring thing. We've been through it. I've hired tons of people in my life. Like, I know we're going to get through it. I know we're a great place to work and we're spending so much time building systems and creating environments that are great for people to work in. Like that's my dream. My dream's always been to have something big enough to employ people and maybe they don't hate what they do. But it's a reminder of this unknown that seems to constantly be there no matter what decisions you make. But I feel like in making a choice to always want to learn, be self-aware, self-actualize, grow, any of those things, you're making a decision to, to just like permanently be in this fog of like, where the hell am I? And the older you get, you're just further and further away from wherever you started. So there's not even really a sense of home anymore. There's, you know, it's probably why I always loved the Odyssey so much, because it was just, maybe we'll go home one day, but in the meantime, we're going to deal with all kinds of crazy stuff along the way. So,
Well,
yeah.
it's this idea of, in one way or another, you're always kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
But we think being in the middle is somehow bad. We always want to be on the other side of the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not even in like a always, you know, the goalpost is always moving so much as the end is always out of reach, right? Because even it's like, oh, I finished this thing, but that was actually just like a milestone on this much larger journey. Fuck, I'm still in the middle.
Yeah. Dude, that hurt. Yeah.
So it's like, what do you want to be in the middle of? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you willing to be in the middle of?
Uh, so we watched this show called The Sandman. Again, I love gods and all that stuff. So like right up my alley. I love the show. And there's enough beauty and gothicness and coolness to the whole thing where Jax is on board completely, but for different reasons, and enjoyed watching this show together. And one of the family of the Endless is Destiny, and he carries this big book, and it's got everything that's going to happen in it because he's Destiny. And at some point, hopefully this doesn't ruin too much for someone if they happen to watch it or whatever, but like at some point there's a realization amongst some characters that end up mattering quite a bit that the book is writing itself as stuff is happening. And when that scene, the first time they like reference this and they actually show you finally that as someone wants answers, the book is like, and you're like, oh my God, dude, Destiny don't even know. Destiny doesn't even know what the hell is going on next. Like that's crazy. And I felt something in that moment of like, there's not answers. There's just no answers. And I don't know why I crave answers so much. I don't know if it's just the like reptilian brain wanting comfort, because I feel like we all kind of just want to do enough not to die, but also be comfortable, because that's what evolution is in my eyes, is kind of trying to find equilibrium as a species. I don't know if maybe I'm far enough along in the evolutionary chain where I'm like, 9 to 5 beer, football on weekend. That's it. That can't be all there is to life, So I'm like driven intrinsically to find more or whatever. But yeah, man, that's what popped in my head when you said that was the Book of Destiny isn't even foreshadowing. It's just taking record. And I'm like, come on, man. Like the oldest, wisest, chillest of all the siblings in that show. And he even has to kind of be like, I don't know, man. What are you going to do next? Come on, you tell me.
Well, you talked about reptilian brain shit. Like answers represent survival. Because if I know what's going to happen or if I know how to deal with what happens, I can survive.
Yeah.
So the lack of answers, the lack of certainty mentally represents danger, potential of death, all this other shit, right? That's why we crave certainty. We crave answers because we think that will help us survive to some degree. Entrepreneurship doesn't have certainty much of the time. Even like, black swan events happen, like even shit like that, right? Like even like really solid companies, tons of resources, tons of, market penetration, like all this other shit. Even they can get fucked sometimes. That's also, again, like with Maslow's, like that, bridging that gap to self-actualization. There's not certainty there. There aren't real answers. There are best practices for sure, but even best practices can fall flat sometimes. It is constant learning, constant pivoting, constant iteration, constant, okay, what worked, what didn't, and why? What was our reasoning for making this decision? And then what outcomes did that decision lead to? Even if the decision led to outcomes we didn't like, was the decision in the moment based on good reason or not?
Yeah. 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 It's so frustrating. It's probably not the truth, but the feeling is of this, like, I want, like you said, I want what's on the other side. And what's extra maddening about that is I know myself well enough at this stage in my life that, like, I know if I got whatever the hell I thought that was, I would be miserable. Like, I already know that. And it isn't just a thought of like, well, I've heard people say, it's like, I know it. I've had a couple days where everything is done. All boxes ticked, team is screaming, like things are chugging, money's being made. I have nothing to do as an owner. And I'm like pacing the floor downstairs, like, all right, we can't waste this time. We got to build something or whatever. And the last time I had to physically like stop myself, like grab a sandwich, sit on the couch, watch Lord of the Rings. Like, stop, bro. It is interesting though that like I keep saying there's like these two camps, and I know there's not. We're all experiencing similar things, but I feel like there's a camp of people who can just find contentment, and then those of us who are restless forever. And I do wish sometimes that, you know, I was content. And then my next thought is, no, you don't. Like, you would go crazy if someone just showed up, and hey, you won the lotto for that, like, paid for life, and you get 20 grand a month. It shows up in your mailbox. You don't even have to go anywhere. I'd go crazy. I'd have to go invent something, do something, build something, help someone. I would have to, because I know I could not just veg out and, watch TV for the rest of my life.
That's why
But
you're
there
an
are some
entrepreneur.
days. And
That's it, right? Like, I don't know entrepreneurs who like fully cash out and they're like, I never do anything ever again. There's always a second act. There's always the next mountain. There's always like, even if they go into like philanthropy or some shit, like there's always a thing because they're like, look, the reason I went into this in the first place is for impact, is for, ripple effects, is to build something real that meaningfully improves the state of the world to some degree. And that is the thing that is inherent to my being, is wanting to make change, wanting to have an impact. That doesn't go away with money. The biggest theme so far for today, and like you said, like, with the Alchemy of Fear cohort and with a lot of other things, centers around uncertainty and fear of uncertainty and trying to wrestle with uncertainty. For me, man, uncertainty is agency in disguise, because being uncertain means you have a choice. If you didn't have a choice, you would have certainty of, this is the only way to do this. This is my only option. And you can see that as a gift or a curse of, I am overwhelmed. There's too many decisions, or I have the freedom to choose what I want to do and how I do it.
yeah.
Uncertainty is agency in disguise. What are your thoughts on that?
Can I have another response from like, his sucks? Man, it hit me while you were saying it, because it's just so true. It's so true. And it's why I can so easily say out loud with confidence, you know, uh, man, it would be nice to have like a 9 to 5 and punch out on Friday and just like drink beer and watch football and feel the reprieve of a weekend. And this is so nice. I've worked hard all week just to get this or whatever. And then, I mean, it's so palpable right after the literal, and I'm not being dramatic, like the literal nausea that comes when I allow myself to have those thoughts of like, "Ugh, I could never, I could never." The last like job I had was still a partnership with someone where I had a ton of freedom, made side money, and was developing my own business while I worked for them. And they knew that that was part of the deal. So even when I had my last job, it was not a typical job. And, I recently heard someone talking about hoping to get a raise because they've done all this work and they've really proven themselves and all this different stuff. And I had the thought internally, of course, I'm not an a-hole, where I was like, oh, thank God next year I can just give myself a raise and I don't have to wait for someone else to give me permission. I just have to put more things in place and grow more and learn more and do more and find more people to give me their money. Like, there is an out. There doesn't have to be a ceiling. I don't have to ever experience again, I hope they give me, a 5% raise because I think I deserve it. If I feel like I deserve it, I go find it, and that doesn't mean it's guaranteed or I'll always make more than the year before, but I know it's there and I am like, man, that's kind of nice. So yeah, I relate to that quite a bit. I also wish I knew, and maybe there's an answer to this that you can point me at for another time, but like, I also wish I knew why, out of all the things that drive us as animals that I understand, like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, they've studied that and that conclusion makes sense to me. Oh, yeah. Why we have this, like, I wonder what it's like over there, or the grass is greener type thought process as animals. Why do we care? Especially if things are going good. Why do we care what's over there? What's he got or she got? Or does the grass taste different over there because I'm stuck on this side of the fence or whatever?
Survival.
Yeah.
It's survival of, is there something better over there that will better help me survive? Maybe there are more nutrients over there. Maybe it is
Mm,
an easier life over there, that there are fewer dangers, right? Like, it's that constant curiosity, that constant exploration that historically has helped us survive as a species, because we're like, oh, there's some stuff over here, but there's more stuff over there, and more means better to us.
yeah. 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 That also made me think of something else I think about quite a bit, which is like anyone we celebrate, um, they have generally they have these either milestones or like bodies of work that exist before they're not here anymore. And we point at those things. Yet when you dig into what makes someone great, there's generally unfinished business, lack of resolve, tortured. A lot of incredible artists that we celebrate to this day of all kinds are tortured. Like there's a lot of like, oh, there might have been milestones or a body of work, but it really is not this complete thing that was made and done and polished and look world, and then they die. It was this ongoing like torture and evolution and what am I trying to find and share and what's like if you look at any great artist that was brave enough to keep painting when they felt pain, you see these chapters throughout their work where things change, sometimes very dramatically. And it's like, oh yeah, there was a human on the other side of that brush, probably going through some things. I don't know. I think the only thing that's more frustrating than being frustrated is knowing why. Like, we're built this way, deal with it, son. Like, come on.
Well, and one thing I'm sure I've told you before, which is something I tell like all my coaching clients, is you don't have simple problems, because if you had a simple problem, you would have already solved it. You're plenty smart, plenty talented, plenty whatever. You no longer have simple problems, which means any problem you have is inherently deeply existential and complicated. That's why it is still here. If it was simple, it'd have already been solved. So like learning to like give yourself some grace of like, oh, okay, that's why this feels like such a struggle. This is why I still have this thing, even though I'm super smart, even though I've done so much. It's because it is deeply existential, deeply complex, and that's okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
And do like navigating uncertainty to one degree or another is why the entirety of organized religion, of philosophy, of most books, like human history, is sort of focused toward helping people navigate uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Wow.
not just a you thing.
Yeah, right. I think if there is any hope for that kind of self-actualization or transcendence beyond just accepting what is and not really pushing past that, um, you have to also, I guess, at the same time admit that this is all kind of crazy, and we only have so much time to do it. So, like, I gotta believe that whatever men are living to now, 78 or whatever, like I gotta believe that's not enough years to figure anything out. So you also have to accept the fact that as much as I figure out, I probably still won't have any answers. So how do we turn that into accepting what's happening now as just part of that journey? That particular thing, outside of the meta-ness, has always hurt my brain a bit. Of it's not the destination, it's the journey. And on paper, I understand that, but I don't feel like I've ever felt that. Like I'm just so glad to be just like building a business today. You know what I mean? I don't know if I've ever felt like the journey is the joy of it all, because it's usually the solving of the problem, albeit most of them tiny, or the completing of the project, or the movement forward, or the client paycheck coming in, or the hire working out, or whatever. Those feel like things that are in and of themselves as opposed to part of the journey. So I struggle with that thought a little bit of like, what for me is believing that the journey is actually the good part. When you're in that meta-ness, looking at just problem to problem to problem, like what am I fixing? What am I doing? Who am I? All the things. Um, yeah. And out of all of this too, I, I'm not complaining about being frustrated. I'm just honest enough to say that feeling frustrated doesn't feel good. I'm not trying to avoid it, but it is the thing that I can most easily identify most days is like, yeah, this is kind of, even the good stuff is frustrating. It's like, what next? Or how do we spend this money that did come in? Or like, what should I do? Or it still turns into frustration eventually. So I don't even know where I'm going with this. I think I'm just vomiting at this point in time. Like, the feelings. I don't know.
What insight, belief, or approach are you walking away with based on what we've talked about today?
I feel like every time I interact with you, there's some kind of like, oh yeah. And today's is as generic as it sounds, it is that there's like power in acceptance, because acceptance doesn't automatically mean staying where you are. So that would probably be, yeah, what I feel like I'm walking away with is a healthy level of acceptance.
Acceptance of what?
Um, Probably that, this is part of the journey. It comes with the territory. It's not a bad thing. Acceptance that there's no finish line. I don't know. It's just another version of having talked to you, and you say some stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that is kind of the way it is, isn't it? And there's an acceptance of that diagnosis, if you will. Like, oh yeah. And I never feel like I think I mentioned to you previously, being in therapy at a certain time in my life, and the doctor being like, man, you're like a poster child for therapy, because you just took the tools and implemented them and you got results. And that makes me, really happy for you. And of course, my default was like, well, I'm paying you, bro. Like, if I implement what you said and it doesn't work, like, screw you, buddy, get a different, job or whatever. I have always kind of like been that way though. If there's a track record, and I'm still like setting boundaries and gut checking stuff as I go. But if you've got 15 years into something, I'm going to listen to you, and there's an acceptance in that too, I believe, of none of this has ever been about like, I think I know everything. It's, every time I see, and this is probably not true, but it's the feeling I have every time I see that Dunning-Kruger graph. I'm like, I've been on the other end of that for so long. And it's not because I think I'm smarter and know a bunch of stuff. It's because I've felt the frustration of what I assume it feels like to be, I know what I don't know. And man, is that frustrating, So acceptance of those things, I think, comes into play too, of like, no, that makes sense. What you've pointed out today makes sense. There's been 2 or 3 times where I'm like, the pain of what you're saying is like, oh yeah, that is the way it is, isn't it? Yeah. Has a little bit of joy in it because there's revelation. And I think one of the pains of growth being acceptance is something I just have to accept. Oh, I keep visualizing, which I think is super cool, like swordsmithing and knife smithing and stuff. And there's always that, I don't remember the term for it, but as they're hitting a piece of steel, there'll be these chunks that just like slough off almost. And it's so crazy that hitting something removes, you understand the bending and the shaping and stuff, but the removal part is like, oh, it didn't need that. That's kind of cool. I've been seeing that kind of blacksmithing, image in my head for the last half hour or so. And I like, that's part of it, right? Like, that's acceptance. We don't need this part. And the quench along the way is acceptance of this is going to hurt and it's going to disrupt everything around you, but it's part of the process of getting better, becoming stronger. Like, yeah, just, yeah, I think the takeaway is acceptance of what I'm feeling and going through as part of the whole thing. Yeah. Doesn't mean I love it though. Maybe that's the part I'll figure out when I'm old.
It kind of goes back to before you said, sometimes like when somebody's crying, it's like sometimes it's just about, it isn't about solving, it's about being. And acceptance is a form of being. You can't really integrate what you don't accept. And, or, even like with, like addiction shit, right? Of like admitting you have a problem is the first step to recovery, like whatever, right? Like the acceptance of this is an aspect, an unavoidable aspect of the journey I've chosen to be on. And until I learned to accept, I cannot go further than I have gone so far. And thinking about like how much of the growth I say I want, or the joy I say I want, the fulfillment I say I want, self-actualization, whatever, how much of that is predicated on my ability to accept certain parts, because that acceptance is the threshold to go further.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this is going to be overly dramatic, and I don't mean it to be. But when you think of the scenario of someone passing away and someone else being involved accidentally, so maybe you were driving, you got in a wreck, and someone with you passed away or whatever, and you're instantaneously put in this position of, had I just went to this diner to have breakfast instead of that one, I wouldn't have picked her up until this time, and none of this would happen or whatever. You're like, the universe gives you that. Boom. You now have to deal with this, in that case, survivor's guilt, but whatever, like this, like, if my choices would have been different, there possibly could have been a different outcome. And again, I'm not diminishing that at all, but using it as just this hypothetical. I sometimes look at, you know, entrepreneurship as like being aware, whether you want to or not, that getting in the car means we could die today. And one of those death outcomes could be you die and I don't, and it's terrible forever. You don't think that when you jump in the car with your friend. You think this party's going to be sweet, or like, can't wait to buy that bag at the mall or whatever. And I feel like entrepreneurship is always, always, always being aware that someone could die on this trip. It's probably not probable, but you are making that decision. It's like, self-imposed or not, I don't know. It's like every decision has weight. When we get to go through regular life, oftentimes not having that weight, because our brain's gotten really good at like disguising the fact that everything we do is actually kind of monumental. Um, that's what acceptance feels like to me, is like purposefully making decisions that are difficult, even if they're not on paper difficult decisions, they still have weight because you've been doing it long enough to know that at some point something will go a certain way, and you'll know that you not only made that decision, you thought about it, you calculated it, you did your best to use everything you had at the time to make the best decision possible, and still something went a certain way. And the reprieve I've spoke of throughout this conversation is that one of, it'd be nice just to get in the car and go to the movies or whatever and not think about crashing. But I feel like in business, every decision is predicated with that. This could go terribly wrong. And I think that's where that uncertainty, being the big horseman for me, has come from. Is like, I don't mind making a decision messing up. I don't mind being wrong. I love saying sorry as much as it hurts. I know that being accountable is a growth mechanism. And so it's important, to admit when you're wrong and stuff. Like, I know all those things, even though they hurt in the moment, lead to better things, but it doesn't make any of those experiences any less, bristly. Ugh. Yeah. Acceptance.
Well, acceptance is also a form of ownership and responsibility and really power, right? We Jocko, extreme ownership, and whatever, that has helped a lot of people. But it's about owning your decisions, right? Again, like uncertainty is agency in disguise. Learning to accept this is the decision I'm making, or accepting I can never know the outcome of the decision I make before I make it. So, my responsibility, what is within my power, is how can I make the best decision based upon information I have available to me today? I'm not a fortune teller. I can't know the outcome, but I can say, how do I make the best decision today with what I have? And let me accept that this is as much as I can feasibly do. Let me accept that this emotion that I'm going through right now is part of this journey, is part of what it means to be an entrepreneur, is part of what I have signed up to do, because I have the freedom of choice to choose this path. And there is a huge disconnect, or not even a disconnect, a huge gap between the intellectual part of this and the emotional part. Like intellectually, okay, I've accepted that, I understand it. But until you feel that acceptance, until you feel that, okay, that's what you're actually trying to go through. And I'm like, dude, I'm not an emotional guy. Like I value stoicism, both uppercase and lowercase stoicism. Even back when I did therapy, people, it was always a joke of like I was the least emotion focused psychologist you would meet. I was very focused on the logic side of it. Like, okay, let's think through this. What if you've got anxiety? Well, what fucked up thoughts are you having that are leading to this anxiety? Not how do you learn to like emotionally, deal. It's like, no, rationalizing, reasoning, logic, like that has always been me historically, and it still largely is. However, there are, there's a certain point where you can't think your way through something. There's a certain point where you've thought as much as you fucking can, and you still haven't come out the other side. And the reason for that is at a certain point, thinking isn't enough. At a certain point, you have to be like, how do I take this from just the intellectual side into the emotional side? How do I integrate this beyond my brain into my actual being, my body? And that is exceedingly difficult, especially when you're the type of person, and this is me, especially when you're the type of person who doesn't like to fuck with emotions. And this is, dude, this is why like I'm such a huge fan of like navigating the inner game of entrepreneurship, because that's the missing piece for most people. It's not that you don't have the right tactics, the right strategies, you're not intelligent enough. All that shit, most people generally either have or can cultivate well enough. For most of us, the real hindrance is all the inner game, the emotional game, the psychological aspects. It's not all this other shit. Because if you look on paper, you probably have all that shit on lock.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why I've felt, and I don't like run around saying this because I don't want to offend people thinking I actually mean it. But like I've always looked at the corporate structure as people's way of being able to get in the car and not think about crashing, but just think about where you're going. I'm just going to go to work, got a paycheck. I've done good this year. I got a raise. I moved to a different department. Company's growing. I might be able to work in another state where it's warmer. And someone somewhere is working on getting leads for that fucking company so people can keep getting paid, you know? And I've looked at that oftentimes being like, oh, there are some components that are kind of nice where you can just kind of not think about the real hard things going on behind the scenes that make a company work. Yeah, even after all of today's discovery and acceptance on the fly, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it at all. It's yeah, it's a journey. I wouldn't go back to the beginning of and pick a different route. Yeah, so I guess that's some form of acceptance in itself. Is yeah, I wouldn't. If I could, I wouldn't. I like it. There, I hope I'm seeing some moments here and there. I always call them sparks in anything I do. Just little sparks or little bits of proof that something exists. I don't need the full picture. Always just a little bit of like, oh, that might work, or oh, we got some, traction over here or whatever. And I was at a Yellow Wolf concert. He's been a big fan, and like they're local, and they happen to be at a venue that is part of the family of restaurants and entertainment stuff that Jack's part of. And I see shows come all the time where I'm slightly intrigued. I'm like, I don't know, because they're not my favorite bands, but like we go to a show or whatever. And I saw Yellow coming through. I'm like, this is hilarious. Like uh, he's one of those guys that no one knows I like him until I say it. And they're like, well, you listen to him? Like, what the hell? I saw a show coming up. I'm like, oh, dude, we got to go to that. Like, I can't not. He's right down the road. And then she came back. She's like, I got a suite. We're booked. It's done. All this stuff. I'm like, oh, babe, thanks. And we knew it was coming up. So we go to the show and we're in a suite. And there's only a very small percentage of people who have the vantage point we have and all this different stuff. And we're just rocking out, doing our thing. And at some point in time, I made sure again to kind of lean in, like, thank you for putting this together, making it happen. And obviously, you could like maybe buy your way into this thing, but I know we're here because of you and who you know and what you can do and pull off and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it could have been a half hour later, but a little bit later, during one of the quiet parts, she kind of leaned over and she's like, you remember when I took you to see him in Detroit all those years ago? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, who would have thought standing on that concrete floor with like GA tickets and people spilling drinks and sweating on me and stuff, that just this amount of time later, we'd be fake bougie up in the suites watching this, and enjoying ourselves. I was like, man, I'm so glad you said that. Like, I need these moments of like, yeah, look where we are. Because most of the time it's just eyes on the road, don't crash, make sure fuel in the tank. All right, cool. Kids are okay. All right, and you don't always get those moments of like, pull off. Here's this like vantage point. There's 3 parking spots. Look over how pretty it is, So I told her a couple times, I'm so glad you said that out loud. Cause yeah, like look at this, this is super cool. Acceptance. I hope that part of that journey is getting more and more clarity on like stopping for those moments, smell the roses for a minute type of stuff. I hope I don't let too many of those things go by, but those are, I think, my milestones. It's got to be those moments where you're like equally as indecisive as I am in this new land I've never seen before. It's kind of pretty. I've never seen this forest before, or that animal, or these, flowers. Like, I like that. It's a bit poetic.
Any other questions, comments, concerns for today?
No, I appreciate the work you do. You just no, there's nothing else, I guess. There's just this. What's funny is you laughing. I know why I'm laughing, even though there's not a set reason. It's just here we are. This is acceptance is giggling at the absurdity of it all, I guess. But no, man, I appreciate your work, and I think my hand's got some blisters today, so we'll address those as we move forward.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dan Bennett, getting to see Dan go from struggling with the unavoidable uncertainty and overwhelm that comes with entrepreneurship to learning to actually accept and embrace it as a form of freedom. Because uncertainty is agency in disguise. And the sooner we accept this, the sooner we can move forward with our businesses. If you want to work together publicly, like I did with Dan today, or privately, I'll put links to apply to both in the description below. Until next time, take it easy.